Hello viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews and Updates. And today I'm going to be giving part 2 of my alternate Oscars for first time watches and discoveries of the 2020-2021 season. And moving on to Best Supporting Actor. I'm giving it to Rip Torn for Defending Your Life from 1991, directed by Albert Brooks, and also starring him. This is about an advertising executive named Daniel Miller, played by Albert Brooks, who, after getting hit by a bus, goes to a place called Judgment City. It is not exactly heaven, nor is it hell. In fact, when Albert Brooks' character first arrives in Judgment City, he acts as if he's in heaven or hell. And it turns out that hell is non-existent. Basically, it's a fancy form of purgatory, where there are exquisite hotels, nice restaurants, and you can eat as much as you want without gaining weight. When souls go to Judgment City, it is determined by trial whether or not the soul will be sent back to Earth for another lifetime, or to transcend to what they call a higher plane of existence. The method of judgment is examining moments of one's life on Earth and determining whether or not one's actions were motivated by fear or love. If one's actions are mainly fear-based, the soul is sent back to Earth and essentially has to repeat the same mistakes all over again. On the other hand, if one's actions are motivated more by love, they get to ascend to what they call, as I said, higher planes of existence. Usually in movies about the afterlife, returning to Earth is the reward. It being the punishment, in a way, in Defending Your Life, makes it stand out from other afterlife movies. Now, during his time in Judgment City, Daniel falls in love with Julia, played by Meryl Streep, and this, of course, makes him rethink if he wants to go back to Earth or higher planes of existence. Without further ado about the plot, Rip Torn plays Albert Brooks' character's defender. He's just fantastic in this. You may know Rip Torn from Men in Black and The Larry Sanders Show, but this role was before he starred in those. Rip Torn's delivery is top-notch. He elevates the material in Albert Brooks' script in a way that I don't think any other actor could have. Rip Torn sadly died 2 years ago. Rest in peace. Defending Your Life is on HBO Max. It's also available on Criterion Blu-ray. For Best Supporting Actress, I'm giving it to Isabella Rossellini for Merlin. Isabella Rossellini plays Nimue, the love interest of Merlin. She is wonderful. A common criticism of hero-centered narratives in fantasy, sci-fi, and action films is making the love interest a damsel in distress. There is a scene in the film where the villainess, Queen Mab, sacrifices Nimue to a dragon. Spoiler alert, she lives. And Merlin, of course, saves her. Undoubtedly, what Queen Mab does to Nimue is horrifically traumatic for her. However, Nimue does not let that event define who she is. There is much more to her character. And moreover, her relationship with Merlin isn't about begging to be saved. And Merlin doesn't want to save her because she's the damsel in distress, but because he loves and cares about her for who she is, and more importantly, Nimue is representative of the divine feminine side to Merlin. She serves as his moral anchor, particularly when he's hard on himself. And this brings me to Best Villain or Villainess, an additional category I made. I am giving that to Miranda Richardson, who played Queen Mab in Merlin. She is so brilliant as Queen Mab. The voice she uses is terrifying. Mab! In recent years of internet fandom, a lot of people like villains with sympathetic qualities. Understandably so. Mab, on the other hand, is pure evil and irredeemable. But nonetheless, her motive is fascinating because it is rooted in the history of religion in England. With the rise of Christianity, Mab wants to preserve pagan ways. Thus, she calls herself the Queen of the Old Ways. Mab's vicious acts to preserve the old ways are set up stakes for the other characters with an extremely high degree of difficulty. It takes more than Merlin, as well as the supporting characters fighting back. They actually have to look within themselves and question their own motivations and intentions. It's like that in Willow too. Magic isn't as easy as waving a magic wand. It takes some internal action as well. Fun fact, Miranda Richardson also plays Queen Mab's sister, the Lady of the Lake. Obviously, she's the opposite of Mab. The Lady of the Lake is symbolic of divine inner wisdom and embracing the flow of life's changes. Additionally, Mab's psychic Frick, played by Martin Short, is hilarious. I love in movies when villains have dumb sidekicks. It's interesting. It's interesting because we don't see those too often anymore. Mab and Frick kind of remind me of Yzma and Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove, if anyone remembers that movie. Miranda Richardson is good at playing villains. She was also in, she did the voice of Mrs. Tweety in Chicken Run. Chicken pies, Mr. Tweety. And she was also in the Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow. For Best Adapted Screenplay, hold on a second. Sorry about that. That was embarrassing. I'm giving it to Being There from 1979, directed by Hal Ashby. I don't really need to explain myself for this one because I talked about it ad nauseum. Instead, I'll just read the Criterion Blu-ray back cover. I got this Blu-ray for Christmas. In one of his most finely tuned performances, Peter Sellers plays the pure-hearted, childlike Chance, a gardener who is forced into the wilds of Washington, D.C. when his wealthy guardian dies. Shocked to discover that the real world doesn't respond to the click of a remote, Chance stumbles into celebrity after being taken under the wing of a tycoon, Melvin Douglas, in an Oscar-winning performance, who makes his protege's horticultural mumblings for sagacious pronouncements on life and politics, and whose wife Shirley MacLaine targets Chance as the object of her desire. Adapted from a novel by Jerzy Kosinski, this satire, both deeply melancholy and hilarious, is the culmination of Hal Ashby's remarkable string of films in the 1970s and a carefully modulated examination of the ideals, anxieties, and media-fueled delusions that shaped American culture during that decade. Now, moving on to Best Original Screenplay, The Double Life of Veronique from 1991, written and directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski, again part of the KFCU. The narrative follows two identical women, Veronica in Poland and Veronique in France, who share a metaphysical connection. They look exactly alike, but they're not related. Veronica is a choir girl, and Veronique is a music teacher. Both characters, if you can really separate them, are played brilliantly by Eileen Jacob, who rightfully won Best Actress at the 1991 Cannes Film Festival. The beauty in the script lies not in the dialogue said, but what is not said. Kieslowski does not explain the metaphysical aspects of the narrative. In cliché terms, he shows rather than tells. In one podcast review I listened to, someone joked that it should be called Three Colors Green, since it stars Irene Jacob, who is in red, and green is one of the dominant colors in the color palette of this movie. And then next, Best Actor, Sam Neill for Merlin, 1998. I can't talk about the merit of Merlin without mentioning Sam Neill. Nobody could have played this character better than him. His purpose isn't just to use magic to save the day. Similar to the titular character Willow, Merlin is incredibly well-intentioned. He wants to serve the greater good, but must conquer his self-doubt and fears of letting people down. And in a way, Queen Mab is reflective of his inner demons he must fight. Most of all, he must accept the fact that despite having magical abilities, he's part human and makes mistakes just like the rest of us. And the way Sam Neill captures these complexities is what makes his character portrayal so nuanced. And he's just a highly underrated actor. He really is. And moving on to Best Actress, Evelyn Prier for Within Our Gates from 1920, directed by Oscar Micheaux. This is also my winner for Best Silent Film Discovery. I spoke about this video in my summer 2020 watches. I spoke about this movie in my summer 2020 watches video you could check out. Just a refresher, this is about a woman named Sylvia trying to raise money for a school for Black children. It was both ahead of its time and way ahead of it. As much as Within Our Gates depicts the horrors and systemic racism in the US, it is also absolutely inspiring because it features such a triumphant heroine. Thus, not only does it celebrate Black empowerment, but female empowerment as well. That is a testament to Evelyn Prier's outstanding performance. What film history classes do not mention is that she was the first Black actress to achieve celebrity status. The Black community even named her the First Lady at the Screen. She was born July 1896 and sadly died in 1932 at the age of 36 due to double pneumonia after post-childbirth complications. It would have been wonderful to see what acting she could have done if she did not die so young. Nevertheless, her career left such an inspirational mark to Black actors. For Best Acting Ensemble, I'm giving it to Local Hero from 1984, directed by Bill Forsyth. Another movie I discussed in my Summer Discoveries video. As a refresher, this is about an oil business executive named Mac, played by Peter Riegert, who goes on a business trip to Scotland to acquire land for oil refinery. However, he ends up falling in love with the town and befriending the townspeople. One YouTuber pointed out that typically in such a setting, a war occurs in which the villagers are the good guys and the business people are the villains trying to stop their peaceful way of life. Writer-director Bill Forsyth smartly avoids that. Instead, it is a very humanist story with no villains. Mac's boss, played by Burt Lancaster, isn't even a jerk. In fact, he has a unique fascination with stars and the Northern Lights. The humanistic aspect is not only a testament to Bill Forsyth's writing, but the way the acting ensemble brings his characters to life. And then, finally, the winner for Best Director and Best Picture is it's really three movies. The Three Colors trilogy. 3 Colors Blue, 3 Colors White, and 3 Colors Red. Spanning 3 Colors Blue came out in 1993, and then White and Red came out in 1994. All of which directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski. This is a set of 3 films, each named after a color of the French flag: blue for liberty, white for equality, and red for fraternity. Despite being inspired by the colors of the French flag, these narratives are really not that political. You cannot box these movies in any particular genre or category. They are completely their own thing. Blue is about a woman named Julie, played by Juliette Binoche, facing grief after the death of her husband and daughter. Julie tries to cope with her grief by withdrawing and isolating herself in the outside world. However, avoiding interactions with people in her community is unavoidable. Thus, she's sort of forced to open herself back up into the world. In the midst of this, she reunites with a former friend, Olivier, played by Benoit Regent, I could be pronouncing his name wrong, who is secretly in love with her. White is about a Polish immigrant in France named Carol. His wife, Dominique, divorces him, given that their marriage was unconsummated. He moves back to Poland and plots revenge on his wife. And one podcast compared it to like a Billy Wilder screwball comedy. This is probably the most political of the three because one half of the couple is Polish and the other is French. But most of all, the movie's essentially about Carol trying to get equal with his wife. Thus, the movie sort of questions, I guess, sort of indirectly questions equality between France and Poland through Carol and Dominique's dynamic. Finally, in red, Valentine, played by Irene Jacob from The Double Life of Veronique, accidentally runs over a former judge's dog. Spoiler alert, the dog lives. And the two develop an unlikely friendship. The judge listens to other people's phone conversations using highly advanced surveillance technology. Meanwhile, one of the people who the judge listens to through phone conversations, is a younger judge in training named Auguste, and there's a parallel story with him. And I don't want to give too much plot away because this is a movie you really have to see. You can't spoil it. Again, similar to Double Life of Veronique, Kieslowski does not attempt to explain the metaphysical aspects. And this is definitely the most metaphysical of the entire trilogy. Despite the trilogy being pretty grounded in reality, there is some metaphysical quality to the whole thing. I don't know how to explain it, but I think you have to see for yourself. Now, you don't have to watch the trilogy in order. I watched Red first, followed by Blue and White. My brother has only seen Red, and he loves Red. After watching Red first, I gained context of how all three films are connected before watching Blue and White, which did not ruin my experience watching the other two at all. In fact, it somewhat enhanced it. However, I will say that if you do watch them in order, there might be a bigger shock value in discovering the connection at the end. But nevertheless, I think there is still shock value in the ending of Red alone without watching the previous two. After all, Three Colors Red is the most celebrated of the three. It's the pinnacle of the entire KFCU. It's the team up. It's the end game, literally. Because, and sadly, after Three Colors Red, Krzysztof Kieslowski, well, he announced he was retiring, and then 2 years later, he died, I think, after a heart surgery. That was in 1996. But his filmography will always have a lasting impact in the history of cinema. I hope you enjoyed my alternate Oscars for 2020-2021 discoveries from March of last year to April of this year. If you like this video, then click the like button and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at Eclectic Movie Updates. I am also on Letterboxd. My name on Letterboxd is Eclectic Movies. And yeah, it was such a pleasure doing this video and sharing it all with you. I'm looking forward to giving my pairings. And see you next time. Goodbye for now.